Absolutely. I mean, I think October 7th obviously shook Israelis to their core, seeing the deliberate killings of civilians, seeing um, more than 230 people taken hostage, including children, including older people, paraded in the streets. I know when I've spoken with many people who are personally affected by those events, and they are very much shaken by them. In Gaza, we are seeing unprecedented carnage and slaughter. We're talking about thousands of civilians killed, including children. We're talking about the majority of the population displaced from their homes. We're talking about entire large parts of neighborhoods reduced to rubble. We're talking about more than 4,500 children killed. We're talking about a reality in which hospitals, schools, UN facilities, refugee camps have been attacked, where nobody is safe, whether you live or die as a product of luck. And civilians have paid the price for this armed conflict, and it's rooted in decades of impunity for unlawful attacks and for Israel's apartheid against Palestinians.
So, Omar, what does Human Rights Watch recommend in respect to human rights law in the face of a war of this magnitude?
A number one recommendation has to be to respect international humanitarian law. That law grew out of the ashes of World War II and was created precisely to spare civilians from the excesses of armed conflict. And we're seeing those very principles put to the test. And frankly, we're seeing them disregarded by all parties. Atrocities committed by one group does not give license to the other group to commit atrocities. International humanitarian law is not a deal between fighters. It's a deal with humanity. So what we're calling for is for all parties to respect international humanitarian law, meaning to refrain from unlawful attacks, including disproportionate, indiscriminate attacks. We are calling for an end to collective punishment, cutting water, electricity, medicine, food for the entire civilian population of Gaza is a war crime. There needs to be clear condemnation of war crimes. There must be a restoration of aid and basic services. Those are all about immediate civilian protection. But in the long run, to prevent continuing to see the carnage and bloodshed and slaughter, there needs to be accountability for serious abuses, including at the International Criminal Court. There must be an addressing of root causes, including impunity and apartheid. And there must be an end to all forms of complicity by states in serious abuses, including arms sales and military assistance. There must be an arms embargo on Israel.
Omar, what else did Human Rights Watch unearth in both Israel and Gaza that may not be as widely reported by the media outlets that you can share with us?
Look, I think the situation, humanitarian situation, it gets focused. I mean, your segment covered the babies that were evacuated, but I think folks forget that the majority of hospitals in Gaza are no longer in operation. And while there's been a focus rightfully on attacks on hospitals, and Human Rights Watch has found that the Israeli government has committed unlawful airstrikes, there's also a reality in which we're not seeing medicine get in. So life-saving care is not able to be provided. So people are dying, dialysis patients and others, because they're not able to get clean water. We're already seeing reports of thousands of cases of acute respiratory illness and diarrhea. Overcrowding is creating the risk of all sorts of different disease. Hunger, the bakeries aren't operating. In Gaza, they've been bombed. They also haven't been receiving supplies. So there's a real risk of malnutrition and starvation. And then we have to remember also the hostages that are being held who face the same conditions as the rest of the Gaza population. They're also at risk because of bombardment. They're also at risk because of the blockade. They should be civilian hostages should be immediately unconditionally released. But I think it's important that we, keep in mind we're 6 weeks in. That means 6 weeks of cuts to basic services and aid. 6 weeks the hostages have been away from their family. 6 weeks that Gaza has been under constant bombardment, demolition of all sorts of structures. So I think there really is an urgent crisis, and there must be urgent action to prevent further mass atrocities.